back to 1966, when this whole thing got started. The suggestion is that your father hit on a good gimmick. You're always accusing the church of being hypocritical and using gimmicks, but it seems to me that your father hit on a very good gimmick. And then there was a lot of showmanship involved. I mean, nudes on altars and satanic ceremonies. How sincere was the beginning of the church? How sincere?
It was quite sincere. There had to be public attention to pave the way for Satanism to be a recognized and above-board religion, as it had never been before. So there had to be public attention. You don't have a movement without moving.
And the archetype of the devil has always been as a showman.
And he always admitted that.
All artists, anyone who has a creative way of attracting attention has always been accused of having diabolical powers.
Now, but what I find interesting is, although many people like yourself might think that he was only doing it as for gimmick's sake and because he was a good showman, you also complain that he won't come and be on your show.
Yeah.
So now, which is it? Would you rather have him be a good showman and come on your show?
Well, why doesn't he come out of the closet?
He's not in a closet. He's living his life happily.
But he is not, I mean, he is fronting an organization.
Listen, he came out of the closet in 1966 so that everybody else could come out of the closet.
But excuse me, but he is not making his views, his doctrines, his beliefs.
His views and doctrines are available in the Satanic Bible.
He's not making them open to the objective inquiry of the press, of journalists, of anyone. No, he's not. I mean, you are speaking for him, but he does not put himself on the line to defend what he believes.
He's past that point.
He no longer has the need to speak to the media in that fashion, and certainly the Christian media is a dying force.
And he's living his life.
Wait. The Christian media is a dying force?
The Christian media is now going through its last very extravagant death throes. Jim and Tammy Baker,
where do you get these statistics from?
All of the evangelists are slowly falling out of favor. And as we move into the Satanic century, we're going to see Christianity's last gasp.
Well, now hang on, excuse me just a minute, Nicholas. You make some broad sweeping statements that do not have statistical validation. Now, while it is true that certain televangelists have had a marked drop in their audiences, overall, the growth of religious media in America is exploding. Can you quote me any statistics in regards to religious radio stations and religious television stations?
Much more.
Do you know how fast they are growing in this country?
There's much more religious media than ever. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that's a sign of the death throes of Christianity. You've given up your ideals, and now you're joining the devil's ranks, which is to entertain people. You are now part of the media, which is something that the fictional character you base your religion on, Jesus Christ, would certainly not have condoned.
Well, now
you are now using...
Nicholas, you throw so many, you know, I don't want to interrupt you, I want to be polite, but you throw so many little zingers out that are just factually inaccurate. I do have to call you. You just casually said this fictional character, you completely disregard the historicity of Christ. But let's come back to that.
As most historians would.
Well, that's not entirely accurate, sir. Let's get back. Let's get back to the.
Well, it is quite accurate if you want to speak about that.
Let's get back to where the whole thing started. Okay. Let's get some facts straight here, and I'm asking you, Zena, because the press has kicked these things around. Jane Mansfield. Was Jane Mansfield a follower and or a lover of your father?
Yes, she was a member of the Church of Satan. I will not discuss my father's private life because I don't think it's anybody's business. But she was definitely a devout follower of the Satanic philosophy.
At a time a follower of the Church?
At a time, yes.
Are there any prominent stars today who are followers openly of the Church of Satan, such as these people were back in the 60s?
There are, and some of them we already know of. Some
Who?
of them, well, if you want entertainers, King Diamond is a member of the Church of Satan. He openly admits that. None of these other heavy metal people are.
Right.
And then there are other actors as well.
For whom? For example, whom?
Well, because of the recent hysteria we've seen, I'm not going to put their
There are people in every
in
field
jeopardy.
of endeavor, in architecture, science.
As a matter of fact.
You see, you blame it on hysteria, but in fact, if they're a follower of Satan, should they not be willing to step forward and say so? I mean...
Well, that's what we're embarking on now.
Well, what the 90s are going to see is a massive rise of Satanism. People are going to come out of the shadows and reveal themselves as thoroughgoing Satanists. Because what we're seeing now is the death struggle between the Judeo-Christian idea and archetype and the more ancient satanic archetype.
Nicholas, for $100, anybody can join the Church of Satan. That's what the membership form says. And that's a lifetime membership.
They can join the Church of Satan on that level. However, to become an active member of the Church of Satan requires that you are already doing something to advocate Satanism. Simply by joining, you do not become a Satanist.
So that's just a quick, easy $100 to pocket.
No, it's...
Well, it is, because, I mean, just, what do you get for your $100? A little membership card that says, hi, I'm a Satanist.
No, Satanism is not, like Christianity, a way of gathering sheep together in one place. We feel that the best way to change the world into a satanic arena is by having strong individuals in different areas do their own individual work. So by joining the Church of Satan, you enter into the possibility of going into the higher echelons of the Church of Satan.
But if you join a Christian church, there is some obligatory relationship that you have, some duties and responsibilities to perform.
The Christian
do you
church,
not have any duties? I mean, you pay your $100, you get your card, and that's it? You
if that's all
anything?
you choose to do. Most Satanists, as most Christians, are not fully committed. Most Christians are not fervent Christians.
And you guys got that problem, too.
Everyone has. When you are dealing with human beings, you have the problem of insincerity. How many Christians are truly Christian? I maybe met 5 in my entire life.
Well, if they're not truly Christian, then they're not Christians.
So that just becomes a semantic problem.
Yeah, can you be a Satanist and not truly be a Satanist?
It's a problem of semantics, as I said. You can say you're a... Well, what does that mean? Satanism is a very broad-based word. To be a member of the Church of Satan is another thing. If I say Bob Larson represents Christianity, therefore does Bob Larson represent Jim Jones and Jim Baker and Jimmy Swaggart and Charles Manson, other people who have called themselves Christians? So you understand the problem. It's a question of semantics and definition.
Okay, let's talk about the church for a minute, because there's so much that I would know and take for granted, and certainly you would know much more and take for granted, that the average person has no understanding of. It is a church. It takes that moniker. It presumes that position. And when we think of a church, we think of weddings, we think of funerals, we think of ceremonies of worship, of its views on everything from medical treatment to
those are all activities that go under the umbrella of the Church of Satan.
Let's find out what goes on in the Church of Satan.
Well, one of the main misconceptions is that the Church of Satan is a physical building where black-robed people come to congregate. The Church of Satan is an idea more than a building. It is a large network of people internationally who are committed to the ideas of Satanism. We don't all get together and have bingo games and raffles like Christian churches do to keep everyone feeling like they're part of one big happy family.
I have to jump in on you now. I don't approve of bingo games and raffles.
No, I didn't say that you did, but you understand.
And I don't think that's truly representational of the legitimate activities of Christianity.
Okay, then, if you can say that, most of what you are defining as Satanism is not part of what we would define as legitimate Satanism, just as I will give you the benefit of the doubt and assume you are a legitimate Christian and Jim Jones was not a legitimate Christian.
You're a legitimate Satanist.
The Church of Satan represents legitimate Satanism.
And some kid who gets a Slayer album and cuts the head off of a cat is not a legitimate Satanist.
I wouldn't want to be anywhere near him any more than you would.
All right. Now, let's talk specifically. Marriage. You perform marriages?
Of course.
What is a satanic marriage ceremony like? What do they do? They obviously don't wear white.
They could wear white.
They can wear whatever they want.
There is no dogma or constricting.
And there's no obligation.
Well, what do you do? I mean, like witches have a hand fasting ceremony. Do you have something like that?
Well, we encourage people to decide what they want. If they want a particular type of ceremony, then we'll help them write it. But there is no steadfast, hard and solid.
The proper use of black magic is to find out what will work for you personally and devise a ritual that will fulfill your archetypal desires in a way appropriate to you. A ritual that would work for Bob Larson to get what he wants out of the world isn't going to work for the next person.
Excuse me, you said black magic. You just let that roll off your tongue like, hey,
easily.
A black magic ceremony for Satan.
Black magic, and again it's a question of semantics, I would define as the use of will and ritual combined to create change in the world without any restraint on what that change might be. No hypocritical pretending that we are appealing to a higher force.
Well, have you been to a satanic marriage? I mean, have the ceremony?
Sure.
What was it like?
I've conducted them.
You married people?
Sure.
In the name of Satan?
If you want to use that terminology, yeah.
What did they do?
It would be a satanic.
It varies.
What I'm trying to
we've all seen Christian wedding ceremonies.
Right.
So we know the philosophical frame of reference in which that occurs, but we don't know philosophically what's happening.
Well, a satanic marriage is usually they're considerably smaller, more intimate, and because you have a gathering of people who are completely for you, and each one is different from the other. We don't have a set rule as to what the marriage will
Unlike
consist
the
of.
Christian church that has an assembly line idea, a certain dogma is read, two people agree to it, you are now part of the Christian community in marriage. We feel that each individual should form a union with whoever they wish to.
But of course, Nicholas, that's because in Christianity there is a prior philosophical commitment as to what marriage represents. And so what I'm saying
marriage
is...
to us, to Satanism in brief, marriage represents what you want it to represent. We believe each individual is entitled to decide what their life should consist of. There is no bond to any supernatural entity.
And even to decide if you even want to be married at all.
Marriage is not mandatory, nor is... Nothing is mandatory.
Would you marry two lesbians?
I personally do not believe that homosexuality is a natural practice any more than you do. And I don't...
Would you marry them if they thought it was and wanted to be? I mean, Anton LaVey, the Satanic Bible certainly condones it.
They would certainly be able to marry themselves and consider themselves married.
Well, it may sound like an absurd question, but suppose Joe wants to marry his golden retriever. If we're all animals, I mean, can Joe conceivably marry his dog?
Speaking for the Werewolf Order, which is my organization in particular, we do not feel that homosexuality is a healthy or natural or safe or hygienic practice.
But you're contradicting Anton in the Satanic Bible.
No. What I would agree with him in this sense, that I do not prescribe any moral onus against it. What I'm saying is do whatever you want to do, but accept the consequences that come with it. And
well, you're not answering the question about the golden retriever, and I'm not...
No, I don't. I believe bestiality is as repugnant to me as it is to you, but not for moral reasons, but because of natural reasons.
But earlier you said we're all animals. I mean, an animal's an animal.
Well,
animals, so what's the difference?
Animals don't breed.
A wouldn't mate with a Siamese cat.
Yeah, only humans.
So neither would a human
only humans who are so neurotic that they break the natural law.
Without getting too intellectual here, you do have some
speciation,
differentiation.
See, that's something
that in effect you're not willing to call morals, but in effect places you as a human animal on a higher rung of evolution's ladder, giving you certain priorities over what you do to the rest.
No, absolutely not. In fact, I believe that animals should be protected by humans, as it is our duty as the inheritors of the earth to protect the ecology, to protect wildlife. And satanic ecology is forefront on our agenda. We need to protect the earth that we live on and our natural environment.